said I was going to introduce her, but so she's the CEO of TMI Consulting, and she's going to be moderating our panel. So she's going to let you know when you guys should ask questions, and she's going to give the panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves. So thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So let's start over here. There's more ladies over here, and I'm totally biased. You can introduce yourself first.
Awesome. Just name and where we work?
Yes, if you,
Okay.
well, why don't you tell us your name, where you work, and maybe your, just an initial thought on diversity in advertising.
Okay. My name is Frances Dobbins. I am an assistant recruiter at the Martin Agency. And my initial thought about diversity in advertising is, I would have to say creativity is the ultimate equalizer.
Okay. And if you want to approach that question from the perspective of why do you think that Christina invited you here, that also works. Okay?
My name is Lisa Stanfield. I'm with Worth Higgins and Associates. I have spent 30 years. This year will be my 30th year in the Richmond ad community, and 29 of those have been working at an agency. In the last year, I'm working for one of our vendors, and it is much more diverse than it was the other 29 years. Not that I didn't love it. It's a very exciting industry, but I think this is an important conversation that we need to have. It's just sort of a pet peeve and a passion of mine that we discuss it.
Hey, I'm Rex McCubbin. Let's see, I spent almost the last decade. At the
Can you hear Rex?
I'm Rex. Can you hear me now? Okay. I spent the last decade as a writer at the Martin Agency, and just very recently started working for Capital One for a brand new department that they're standing up for enterprise level brand standards, which is really exciting because it's company-wide standards. So that's new to me, so I'm getting a whole new taste of diversity there. I would say my initial thought on diversity is that it's a mentality, not a strategy. And I think a lot of businesses employ it like it's a strategy. So those are my thoughts. Just out of diversity.
Mr. Joshua Epperson. Woo! I promised you I would do that. Just kidding. Go ahead.
I'm Josh Epperson. I actually don't work directly in advertising. I work in branding. So I work for an international branding firm called Profit. I'm a copywriter over there. My first thought about diversity, I guess diversity in the space that at least I work in, which is for all the Fortune 500 companies that Martin Agency does and all these other folks work with, is that what I've seen is that it's really, if we want to change anything, we just change the way we consume. Because I think I see a lot of the companies that I work with come to us. I mean, they're hiring us because they don't know answers. And so they come to us like, what do they want from us? And we're making that decision. We hear they don't buy cars anymore. What do we do? And that's because of our behavior. And so they're responding to what we do. So my first thing about diversity is that I think it really changes with consumers being really intelligent about how they consume.
Thank you.
I'm Holly Smythe. Like Josh, I'm not directly in advertising, but I'm a recruiter for the VCU Brand Center, which is a graduate program for students who are interested in getting into advertising and branding and creative business careers. And my initial thought on diversity, it's a conversation we're always having, is how can we get more of it in our program to put more of it out there in the industry, because it's really that blending of different backgrounds and cultures that make our program work.
Great. And I'm Scott. I'm a second-year copywriter at VCU Brand Center. My first thought on diversity is if brands care about making money, then they should care about diversity.
Excellent. So let's see, Lisa, we had a conversation on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something about the kind of history from whence we came in advertising agencies once upon a time. And Josh and I are having a conversation. It's pretty important to understand where we've been in order to sort of better move forward in a good way. Can you share what you shared with me on the phone?
Yeah. I'm not an expert on it, but I know when I started in the industry, and it was like 1986, there were a lot of lawsuits on Madison Avenue in New York about the representation of minorities in the leadership of these ad agencies. So it was more about not diversity in the ad campaigns as diversity in the leadership of those. And that was in I think might have been the early 90s, but there were a lot of lawsuits, and they had follow-up the next year. You know, companies would come back in, or auditors or whatever would come back in and look at their numbers. I don't know where that is today. I know the article that we got from Danny Robinson wrote said 6% of the leadership in the advertising industry is a minority or is African American. I can't remember what was 6%. So in my 30 years, I haven't seen as much improvement as I would like to have. And now, honestly, we're in Richmond, Virginia, and that's a little bit different than being in Madison Avenue in New York.
A little bit.
But still, I think it's important for people to understand that our industry was already, it was sort of spotlighted in the 90s for having this problem. So we should have been maybe ahead of the curve a little bit more, or a little bit more scrutinized. But you don't feel it. I'd also like to manage expectations for students coming out of school and going into the work world. But that's another topic. Sorry, that wasn't.
No, that's fine. I'm absolutely fine. Did any of you all have any reaction to what Josh said in his introduction and in his first thought? This idea that the change in diversity, the change in what we can expect from branding and advertising might be led by us. Are we advertising? Are we leading, or are we following? And does that matter?
I agree with what he said. I just think it's more that longer term. At the end of the day, it's business. At the end of the day, I want a return on my investment. And if I'm coming to his company and asking, how can I improve the bottom line? The science is there that diversity does improve the bottom line. We've got those numbers. That's not a hard argument to make. It's just convincing the C-suite people to be motivated to do it. And if they don't do it because it's right and it gets better product and better creativity, then do it because it does make you more money. But I'm not sure they all buy into that.
I think it's really interesting because advertising industry has changed a lot. A lot of companies are doing the work in-house. So advertising companies are working really, really hard to kind of do whatever they can for the company. So we're always trying to follow whatever trends are happening instead of like kind of coming up with our own ideas. And that's put us in a position where it's like, well, if diversity is cool, they don't care about diversity.
Right.
But if it's not cool, then we're not like investing time in it. So now that it's cool, it's
cool
the topic
this week.
again, and we've like done stuff like Here Are All the Black People, and it's like, okay, well, like we like representation shouldn't be like because it's cool.
Right.
It should be because like we care and it's important, and it's better for business, and it's better for creativity.
Right. Have any of you all seen any examples that you can share of diversity done well or done right? Things that you can look at as reasons to keep pursuing this conversation?
I think there's an ad from like Axe has clearly repositioned. And I don't know if like the quality of that content is like really to be celebrated, but and it is a little bit following the. I don't think you could challenge the authenticity of where they're coming from with their new campaign, but the old style of Axe was this very binary, very heteronormative view of masculinity, and it was all like about getting women. So there's the heteronormative piece, and it was all about like sort of being macho and all that. And they have clearly pivoted in there's newer stuff where they're representing what is appropriate and accurate, which is a spectrum of masculinity and a spectrum of who men are, which I think is challenge the authenticity of the thing as you will. I think that's the right direction for the conversation to be going. So I've enjoyed that.
It's good.
I used to have a client. We worked with a client that was a furniture retailer, and they were expanding across the country, and in the Colorado, New Mexico area, wanted a much more Hispanic targeted campaign. And we had a heck of a time. The account team, strategic planners, copywriters had a heck of a time convincing this client to hire a Hispanic director and producer for that, and not just take the script and translate it and understand why, I don't know Spanish very well, but shower of savings, April showers, stand-up bath of savings really doesn't mean anything. I mean, there are some things that just, the concept doesn't work.
That's awesome.
Why would we have to have such a hard, because it costs less money
Right.
to produce one spot than to produce a separate version and pay the talent and get, but on the one time that we convinced them to do it, or maybe 2 times, the results were dramatic. It was
Yeah.
so obvious how much better that market
Yes.
performed in those same store sales. It's not rocket science, but it costs more to do it that way. It shouldn't be that hard of a sell. But our account people, won a little battle there.
Great.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh man. Oh, it was so good. She was about to say something so brilliant, like minds were going to be blown. It's okay. It's all right.
I mean, my favorite thing to get on a casting specs document, and Walmart is notorious for this one, is that the person has to be ethnically ambiguous,
Oh, yeah.
which is just terrible because it means that they're not white, but we don't really know what they are. And as long as
Safe.
we can say that they're not just white, then we're okay. But to draft off of something you said, and you said part of what you want to learn here is how to change that without kind of causing a stink. And honestly, that, just as a writer, has been my most successful way to do things, because as a junior or mid-level writer, it's really it's kind of you can't just stand up and be like, I don't agree with who you want to cast in the spot, or this spot is stereotyping men as like dumb, or dads as dumb, whatever it is. What I started to do was just write my spots differently, and not to make them 2 women getting married necessarily, but if I showed a mom in a spot, then I wrote the spot so that the mom wasn't doing things that moms on TV typically do, and then when we went to cast the spot, I would always try to write casting specs, which have to get approved by the client. I would always try to write casting specs that weren't typical and let them tell me no. And a lot of times, they don't really care. They're looking for you to tell them who you want to cast in the spot. And if you say it makes sense for whatever the concept is, they'll say okay. I mean, unless you're saying that you want to cast a gypsy, which would be awesome. But, you just kind of start to slowly, I think Luke Sullivan said it best, wrap the pill in the bologna. So you just kind of start to sneak in that stuff, and before you know it, they start to see that their spots are feeling better for some reason, and they're feeling better because they're more authentic. So I think diversity in general is such a complicated issue, especially in advertising, and I thought about it a lot today because I was thinking what kind of value am I going to bring to this conversation? I am a woman, and I am a gay woman, and I've been in advertising for a long time, and I thought to myself, shit, what am I going to say that's going to be prolific to these people to make it so Christina will invite me back to do this, but honestly, the biggest struggle I have is I know all of the people that are C-suite people at Martin, and they're all white men, but they're really awesome white dudes, and the biggest issue is that nobody there is actively trying to not put people of color or diversity in the work that we do.
Right.
And in fact, I've been in the room before when Danny Robinson sees something and goes, guys, it's awesome, but there's no people of color in it. And those people go, fuck, I'm embarrassed. I can't believe we didn't even notice that. So I think it's figuring out how, not necessarily to get people to stop making bad decisions about diversity, but to get them to be conscious of the fact that it doesn't exist.
Good.
So.
That was so profound.
Thank you.
Did I tell you? It's amazing. No, but you gave a really eloquent example of leading from where you stand. It's important, and I do diversity work for a living. This is the only thing that I do, and it's all over everywhere, and it's one of those pernicious challenges. So for audience members who have that question, I think that's something that you star, highlight, XX, all the marks, because you will be somewhere. You are somewhere now. You will continue to always be somewhere, and you definitely want to seize the opportunities that you can to elevate your awareness and the folks around you. So that's really great.
I think there's something interesting. I don't mean to step
No, I'm done.
Moderating.
That's why I
toes.
look over here.
I think it's interesting what you said, because, you know, when I mentioned the thing about consumers being smart, like, if I just went into work and shut off all of the other parts of my brain besides the part where I just deliver work for the client, I would never challenge anything. I would never look at anything, but I bring my whole self to the work. Sounds like you bring your whole self to the work, you know, and your perspectives come with you to the job. And so I think that's I think your statement and your, you know, how you kind of write to kind of get these perspectives in is you being a smart person out in the world, like outside of the job, being a smart consumer, being a smart, engaged person, you know, whether it is, you know, whether you're a white dude who's an ally or you're a person of color or whatever it is, just being educated, knowing that there are these issues and there are these perspectives out there is incumbent on us. Like, it is our literal responsibility to stay engaged in the conversation. And so, because then we are able to bring it to our jobs.
And I would see you're a smart consumer and raise you one conscious citizen, resident, because it's not just the purchasing choices you make, it is also the life you live, the people you choose to be around.
It's also consumption of content.
Yeah, yes.
Consumption of media.
My gosh, media,
you know?
yes.
So
yes.
if you're choosing media that only puts, you know, gay men in an effeminate space where they, you know, dress a certain way, you know, sort of thing, and we're all just hysterically laughing and saying this is A-okay, then that media form survives because it's cash.
Exactly.
But if we choose other content, if we consume consciously, then it may change.
I think another smart thing is that, like, bringing your whole self to work. I think I went to a company before, and everyone, like, tries to be really, really safe, and everyone tries to, like, play by the rules, and that doesn't really get you noticed, and that doesn't make you special. You know, I go to work with my super, super short shorts, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy in short shorts. Oh, he's interesting. And people want to talk to you, and they want to get to know you. And I think that if we all, like, we're all different, and we all, like, bring some different viewpoint. And so there's diversity in any room, and, like, we can't always see it, and maybe it's not on your skin, and maybe it's not, like, you know, within your, like, sexual organs, but it's like, we are diverse. So it's like we have to be more comfortable willing to be, like, to bring our full selves to work and not to play safe. Yes, like, we take bigger risks that way, but, like, that's how we get to better work. And if we care about the work as much as we say we do, then we'll do that.
So how do you all feel about, actually, wait a minute, I will ask one question and then I would like to open it up to the audience. Disruptive advertising, or advertising that shows up as disruptive. I remember, because of the work that I do, that didn't seem disruptive to me. Cheerios commercial. Seemed like a perfectly great commercial to me. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Little interracial family. What? Is there a place for that? Is that something that people should be doing on purpose? What do you know, what thoughts do you have about what appears disruptive?
As a biracial person,
What?
my mind was not blown. I was just like, yeah, family, I get it. I felt like that it's not a question of should people be doing it. Should we be representing reality? Is what
Right.
And the answer is yes. We should represent reality, because that you consume Cheerios in your real kitchen, in your real house,
With
in
your real spouse.
with your real family, your real
crazy.
kids. So I think
I just
yes,
thought,
but it's also not a question.
I thought with all the hullabaloo I needed to ask, because apparently it was a very crazy thing. All right, audience, you have any questions for these beautiful people? These beautiful, smart, conscious people up here? Yes.
Based on like what you're saying about what people consume driving, like what advertisers produce, how do you not start to form like just a pessimistic view almost, and just like not society, but just like asking yourself like why are people consuming the things that seem to make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I look at people like Shonda Rhimes or Rhimes.
I say rhymes.
And I'm like, nailing it. Like, obviously we have made choices in consumption that, you know, she's just like crushing in a space that is dominated by white men. And not to say all white men are bad, but like, I think we could even it up. And so that was all of us making small choices to consume small things. And then you can, to the way I would stay, I'd be interested in what everybody else thinks, but the way I stay unpessimistic is I make a choice every single moment. Where I go, what I do, how I spend my time, what I buy, what I look at, what I talk to my friends about, conversations I choose to have, choose not to have. Every single second you're alive, you're empowered with, you know, we're all in this room assuming most of us are educated, assuming most of us could afford transportation to get here, you know, assuming we're like privileged people.
Right.
And so we're empowered with choice. And every day, every minute, we can make a choice. And so even if it like feels small, I feel like that's a hopeful thing, that we can make choices.
Wait, does anybody else want to respond to that question?
I know exactly what she's feeling, and I have the same sort of thing, but what I've said to myself over and over again in the years is it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a cliche, but
That's what's up.
it is I have to be more patient than I have been, certainly more than I was in my 20s. But the steps that I can take as somebody who's in HR and does recruiting and wants to hire people and hire the right people and get the right mix of people, go into the, you know, you even have to go to the high school level and talk to high school students about the advertising as a career to think about. And, you know, not just going to Virginia State or Virginia Union, but going to the high school level and say, really, in Richmond, you're here in Chesterfield County or you're in Henrico, do you realize what's in Richmond? For a small city, it's a very fertile advertising community, and they don't even know that. They don't even think of it as a career path. So having those conversations with 16 and 18-year-olds is some movement, but yeah, patience is not my strong suit. But I know exactly what you're asking. It's tough because you do get discouraged.
I mean, advertising is a discouraging job. I mean, look, like every day you're going to go into work and you're going to have this crazy pressure to solve problems for brands that, you know, the expectations are for you to basically come up with the best idea you've ever had every single day of your life, okay? Which is an awesome challenge to wake up to every day, but, you know, it's a little bit stressful, so, and you're going to present ideas that you're real happy about, and they're going to die, and you're going to keep doing it, and then eventually you're going to sell one, and you're going to see it somewhere in the world, and you're going to be really proud of it. And the way that I try to not sort of get down about my positive or negative effect on the world, and as it relates to what I do for a living, is when I write a headline, I make sure that that headline doesn't do anything damaging for anybody else around me. That is what I can control as a writer. Writing concepts that are showing situations that make more people feel at home, as opposed to just some people. That is how I sort of do it. It's little baby steps, and it's kind of fun because you kind of feel like you're pulling one over on people. It's like your secret little war. But also, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my career is really just assuming positive intent from people. Because a lot of times when you're young, you're like, these people are doing this on purpose, and these people are, they're ignorant, and they're evil, and they're bad. And the truth is, it's a lot more complicated than that, and it shouldn't be the way that it is. But it's also not as black and white as people just deciding not to let these other people in. You know what I mean? So that helps me not be as angry about it, because I realize it's a complicated thing, and there's not always an easy answer. So.
Helene, I saw your hand up. Sorry.
Well, a lot of my question that was kind of answered, and the thing that I'm the director of the Brand Center, and obviously we have the same issues in looking for and wanting to encourage diversity in general. And is advertising just not understood enough? presented as something that's a viable career choice, or is the underrepresentation visually on commercials part of why should I be part of that? Because that's not my world, that's not my life. And this is what we're looking for every day, concrete steps to not love the panel, no more talk, concrete steps for what we can do to make it attractive, inclusive, and inviting. That's my question.
One thing, so my team did a project on diversity in advertising the beginning of first semester. And one thing we found is that like a lot of the way we hire in advertising is through referrals.
Yes.
So like no one has time to like do like 300 resumes, so we refer our friends, and so that's why like
That's kind of everywhere. That happens everywhere.
That's everywhere. That's every company. So when you get everyone referring their friends, it's gonna look just like your
Hello?
fraternity house, your sorority house. Like, oh my god, all my friends, they look exactly just like me. So it's like if we like if we know that like a lot of people are being hired by referrals, then it's like how do we like encourage people to refer different people, refer people of different backgrounds or like different like racial groups. Sorry, words. Like how do we get people to refer different people, or how do we remove the referral process? Like how do we change this? That's one thing that we can actually change.
So I'm going to tie something together here for you. This is the leading from where you stand, and then the being conscious about what you're consuming and what you're doing and who you're befriending, because you're absolutely correct. We refer the people we know. So if you are not getting outside of your comfort zone and making sure that you are associated personally with all kinds of people, you're never going to be in a position to change this particular conversation that we're having. If you'll be able to refer awesomely qualified, cool, talented people if you happen to also know them and they do things that are similar to what you do. So that is a personal piece of responsibility and an actionable step. There are a couple people on this panel that I haven't heard very many words from.
The recruiters.
You guys were like, yeah, I'm going to project all day.
It's a great question. I think, as a recruiter, I haven't been doing this for that long, and I've only been in advertising for 2 years as well. I never thought of it as an option. I was born and raised in Richmond and went to Verina High School, but it was never brought up to me as a career. So I think maybe it'd be a great idea to go into the high schools and tell them that this is an option. To say you can mix business and art. So definitely, I would definitely start reaching out to people a lot sooner. I mean, I think that's important. I think it's important going to colleges really early, all kinds of colleges. Doing outreach, making connections. That's what's important to me.
That's great.
So I don't.
Yeah, and same. And I was going to say from a recruiting standpoint, the VCU Brand Center, the thing that makes our program so unique is that we take students from all over the world and from all different backgrounds. We had a biology major who worked in the emergency room for 2 years before coming through our art direction track. So, for me as a recruiter, it can be overwhelming. It's like, where do I even begin to get the talent? Because potentially anyone I meet is a potential applicant. So, I'm always open to suggestions on how to hone in on more specific areas, because it's such a vast thing, and we're such a small team of people at the Brand Center. So.
Thank you. Yes. Can you stand? Because we can't hear you up here.
I think it's a little funny that advertising, as a field, has done a bad job of advertising jobs.
We're also not good communicators.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting because you mentioned Middle Eastern as the community of which you are a member, yes? So we hear that different groups are looking for more diversity. So as we look at folks to talk to, schools to go to, communities to reach out to, the more what I hear as a diversity consultant is, oh my gosh, we really would like to have more kinds of diversity, but we can't find anybody. Where are they? So it's very important for us to identify, to find those opportunities where we can reach out in that way. So
I think it's interesting just thinking about what you said, mentioning like doctors or engineers or scientists or what have you. I think, when we think about careers like that, I think we're like, that's very respectable, it's very successful, but it's tied to cash, right? Like, it's like you can definitely go get paid in that space. If you become like a creative director or whatever, you can still get paid. Like, it's it's on, a level of success as well, even just like financially, but also creatively, that is actually, you can tell that story in the same way. And I think, honestly, what's the first thing you think about when you get a job? Like, what, what does it enable me to do, right? What does it enable me to take home at the end of the day? And plus, is it fulfilling, blah, 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 all the feels. But I think we think a lot about cash, and it's a culture oriented around cash, and we could tell that story. I don't know. I think it might be brash.
You said tying art to business. I thought that's something that a young person would understand, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely, I did psychology and studio art, and never would have thought, I knew I loved people and I loved being in a creative environment, but never thought of recruiting at an ad agency, ever. Yeah. What were you going to say something?
Sorry.
No, do it.
You had a thought. We heard it.
Moment. I want to hear it.
Well, first of all, does everybody here, I know this is a diverse group of people, but does everybody here know how big brands handle diversity when it comes to advertising? Like how they, in their minds, check those boxes? Okay. So
education moment.
I'll just take Walmart as an example, seeing as they're like the world's largest retailer. They will typically have an agency of record, which for them is the Martin Agency, and I know this because they were my client when I worked there. But they also have a Hispanic agency, they have an African American agency, and they have an Asian American agency. And each of those agencies does a lot of campaign work specific to those targets. Now we do something called transcreation, which is sometimes very successful and sometimes really just a matter of translating something to another language, which I think is a huge service to the work and to the audience. But let's say that Martin comes up with a great campaign for TV. They will then give that campaign to, at the time, Lopez Negrete, and Lopez will basically say, this either makes sense for your Hispanic target, or this does not translate whatsoever. It translates to
stand-up shower thing.
Stand-up shower.
Stand-up savings.
In which case Lopez will say, Walmart will then be at a crossroads to say, okay, we now need to reconcept this for our Hispanic audience, or we're gonna just kind of change some words and run it anyway. I will give them some credit and say that they are pretty good about saying, this really doesn't, it's not going to resonate with our Hispanic target, so we're going to let Lopez do a campaign. I actually don't know why Lopez doesn't just do their campaigns for their Hispanic target all the time. And in fact, before I left Martin, we got to a point where Lopez was presenting hero campaign level work along with us. So we both had the same opportunity to get the winning campaign. And in fact, I don't know if you guys saw maybe 2 years ago all those really terrible spots Walmart did with Melissa Joan Hart and Anthony Anderson. And they were on a soundstage. It was for Christmas. That was actually, I think, Lopez's idea. And they went and did the same concept with two Hispanic actors that score really well for their audience. So in Walmart's mind, they've got Anthony Anderson, they've got Melissa Joan Hart, so we've got white and black covered, and then they've got, they've got, what was his name? Really funny guy.
George Lopez?
No. They actually got somebody who was like legitimately. No, I almost said El Jefe. Anyway, it was phenomenally successful for them. In fact, the Hispanic campaign outscored the Anthony Anderson and Melissa Joan Hart campaign like 2 or 3-fold. So that just goes to show you that, to draft off what you said, which is vote with your dollars, vote with your content consumption. The more that retailers and brands are successful doing things the right way, the more they're going to do it the right way. So that was an example of them going, oh, wow, that worked really well. We should do that more often.
I want to apologize to my Middle Eastern friend in the back. You didn't have an agency.
Sorry.
And the Middle Eastern folks are like consistently just getting left out.
They're probably
of the check
looped
boxes
in
and
with the
things, but I
Asian
think
American agency.
it looped in there.
Probably.
But I
mean,
hear
I'm not
you
saying that's
might
okay,
be
but-
getting a census checkbox soon or something. I know, it's wild. America. All right. Yes.
This is kind of addressed to the recruiters, and this is kind of my story with diversity. Prior to coming to Albert Media, there were no African American female account executives. There were no openly LGBT account executives. And when I came, I told them all the time, I was like, you must get a tax credit. I'm female, I'm gay, I'm like, if I convert you to coming into it, I did the same thing you did. I kind of crouched my personality. I kind of really wasn't open. I was there. They go up. Hey, it was like, hey, this is that. But I really kind of did a lot of things. And then through being there and dealing with different clients, it was things that I noticed. Like, no one, they were like, oh, you don't have to get all the gay bars going down. I'm like, well, has anybody went to talk to them or whatever you presented? And they're sitting in, my 40-year-old African American male counterpart that asks me inappropriate questions about anybody like girls. You're sending him to talk to Godfrey? Why? Or, we have African American males, but how do you know how to, market a hair product for African American females? You don't. How do you know how to market a salon? And it was so many things. A lot of the commercials for the urban version, they were like blackface. And so it was, it was a mess. It was kind of like, all right, this was 4 years ago now, so we're a long time coming, but I kind of gradually had to let more of me shine to fix issues. And now to be able to see where we are. And in San Antonio, there's this whole department that's dealing with, we got an iHeart Latina Festival. We got Pride Radio. Like, there's an actual station on the iHeart Radio app. That's like, we got terrestrial stations in, Minneapolis, that's a Pride station. And to see kind of how those things transpired over the past 4 years, and to watch how faces also in the company changed, it shows that they were kind of realizing that we need to do something different. Okay, we got all these people that look good on paper, but let's bring them in and see what their personalities and what their backgrounds can bring to the company. So to the recruiters, it's like, take a chance. Out of box, I'm loopy, and my clients can tell you, but I'm organized. But look at different people. Look at, you never know how they can not just shape, your local market of your company, but there's ideas and different things that I've talked to our regional presidents about and to see these things happen. And now, 4 years later, I'm a regional account executive for our Pride Radio and our multicultural thing. So that's Virginia, that's DC, that's Maryland. Oh my God.
Awesome. You get it. Get your money.
But one person can make
Yes.
a big difference. So just look at that when you're recruiting. We say we want the diversity, but like you said, are we reflecting it?
Right.
Like you said, there's nothing wrong with like no faces, but can we get a little more balance and what can we really do?
That speaks to the inclusion piece, because you didn't start from the very first day, but when you started bringing your whole self to work, you from that core affected the whole entire system. So this is the diversity in advertising panel as far as I know, but don't lose that inclusion piece, because that's where that's a really important component. Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
I think one of the things you said, which was like people are trying to talk about hair products for African American women and they don't know how to do it. I think it's fair to say that some things aren't diverse because the people writing them don't know how to write about those things. So again, that goes to the it's complicated. It's like I can't speak from an African American male's perspective.
Yeah.
I just can't. And unfortunately, Danny Robinson is the only African American male I can go to at the marketing agency. But you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just a matter of like.
I think that's not to like tangent again, but I think it's really interesting because like hair products for African American women, that right there, when you see an ad for that, that is not going to be a diverse ad because it is a very targeted audience, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel you. And that's like also okay. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I was working on this project. I don't know how I feel about this, but I was working on this project for, which is a mint company. It's just like small little mints. It's like a lifesaver, but the center's filled in. And
Never thought of it that way.
I mean, yeah, it's real. And so we were doing like they were kind of rebranding them essentially, which should be like all launching like this summer. And so we're creating a brand book, which is like at the end of a project, it's kind of like, here's, the context of what your business problem was, here's kind of what the opportunity is financially, etc. So here we did some research and we came up with this answer, here's what your new brand is. And we do it in like a beautiful like book. And so we're going through the book with the client and we have our designers on the phone and they pick some imagery to represent some of the segments, some of the people who we would sell mints to. And we have this white dude in a flannel, and he's like all handsome, and he's all like doing this thing, really good looking guy. And then we have this beautiful lady. She's got like a big fro, and she's like looking up all like lighthearted and whimsical. And like we have like a couple other people of color throughout the thing, and it's also like fairly balanced with some other people of color and white folks as well. And we get on the phone with the client, and the client was just like, why are all these, this is a paraphrase, but it's like,
I'm ready to cringe.
why are all these, why do we have so many people of color in the deck, like in the book? And my design director was like, are you saying we should have more white people in the book? We want more white people. And he's like, yeah. And then he made a point, which is accurate. He was like, white people buy our product. That's where the money's coming from. And so from a purely business perspective of like sell the thing to the people who are buying it, he was making an accurate assessment. What he wasn't saying is that we want to shift our focus and open up our segmentation to include, more people and advertise, to these folks. But I think that's a sticking point to me. It's like, it's an interesting point because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is business. We're talking about people moving products. And like, that's like, sometimes it's just for black women, Sometimes
But we all have bad breath from time to time, amen.
No, that is real. That's why it is different. But I think it brings up a question to me, around like, does the full spectrum, every box checked, apply to every single instance? And I'm willing to say no.
No, I would say no.
And so, we kind of, I don't know, that's the complication you were talking about earlier. It's like, that also makes it complicated.
I think the one thing we kind of ignore is there is a bit of a stigma attached to advertising, diverse or not. And there was a book by one of the French holding companies, and I think part of the title was, and it's an old joke, which is, please don't tell my mother I'm in advertising. She thinks I'm a piano player in a whorehouse. So it's always been a classically, white males selling to everybody.
Yeah.
It's been an issue when you present anything to your clients who are usually C-suite, usually stands for Caucasian, and usually around 50. And what you do is you present to them a product for a 15-year-old, and they're going to go, I don't relate to that. Nor should you relate to that. It is not to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And the fact that maybe you didn't do expectations enough for them to go, white people buy it because that's who you're selling it to.
Right. No, that is the thing, for sure.
Wouldn't you like to? And the frustration is where I think we need to point out that the industry has changed so much because there are so many more opportunities, so many more ways that clients are becoming for causes and for purposeful things and not just to sell. Because why would I want to do that and add to the capitalism that has put me in a different position?
Right. Right.
I'm sorry, that wasn't a question.
No, it's fine. Look, baby girl, your brand center reputation, you get to have some floor time. Yes.
Just
Sure.
real quick, I've been recruiting actually for a year, and I don't make the ads, but I do hire the people that do. And I think personally, not in my job description, but it's my responsibility to put a diverse cast of candidates to the hiring managers and to the interview team, and that's something that is important to me and should be important for other ad agencies or PR companies or whatever. And we also do the MAPE program, and instead of just doing one, I was like, let's do two. It's just small changes, but makes a big difference. So
I saw your hand next. Hello.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I was just wondering, back to what you said earlier, was focused on.
I'm gonna need you to stand. Sorry.
It was almost like to focus on one attribute versus another. How do you find that line for a product and a product that kind of lost it?
Was that directed to someone? Okay. Good.
Somebody else want to answer? I don't want to talk too much.
I mean, I think you do it with the math. You say, everybody buys mints. Here's the numbers. If you sold one more roll of mints or one more bit of chewing gum or a shoe, whatever the product is, if you sell one more pair of shoes to this community, you'd make $2 million in a day. You can project that, like the math is there, you can make that happen. And then it becomes a business decision. And you prove it because, you made a comment at the beginning that if brands want to make money, they should care about diversity. They should, because we're all here. We're all buying stuff, Enough of us are paid now, to consume.
Sorry.
And enough of us are in the system to consume. And so show them the numbers. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, this is way less emotional than it is just raw business and raw cash.
I'm gonna go with you because I haven't heard from you yet. Hello.
I was just thinking about consumption when we look at how.
Oh, can I get you to stand up again too? Sorry.
I was just thinking about consumption and how we consume media. And one of the leading sources of media that we consume is advertising. When we look at it online, billboards, TV, radio, what have you, that's where we're consuming our media. So unless we start changing it from that perspective, from what we're seeing, I really feel that's the best way for us to kind of permeate our culture. When I think it was H&M, they released an ad with a Muslim woman in a hijab, for their clothing line, and I was like, that is absolutely amazing, because we hadn't seen that before. It's not something we don't think of Muslim women as being models for American clothing lines. And so when we're talking about diversity, I think it really does have to come from what we're seeing. And whether it's a small change, just even a little bit, I think that really helps permeate our culture and help affect our consciousness, because white girl from the country, you don't see that kind of stuff very often. And so especially now as we're moving into a much more online and social culture from a digital space, I think that's a huge opportunity that's starting to be tapped, but that it has a lot more potential. So I don't know. Take that.
I think that the relationship goes both ways. So we consciously consume, and if we have the power to make those choices from the advertising side, from the creative side, both of those energies are working at the same time. So I think that level of consciousness is what is the consistent thread. You had that.
Yeah, Josh, you made the Axe example earlier. Do you think that change was more of a push or pull?
I would assume they were pulled into that. They were probably doing okay.
Leadership that's an ethical change.
Yeah, I would be interested in if their numbers started declining and they needed to
I think the CEO of Axe was totally into the ladies, and he smelled Axe on this one dude, and he was like, "Oh my goodness!" No, that's
Yeah, I mean,
that'd be a good story, but it's
I'd be interested because I don't work again. I don't make ads on a daily basis. You make ads on a daily basis. You know, you're making ads that one day could get out there. You know, I don't know. I think that it's okay if we pull brands into reality, kicking and screaming. I don't care. You know, fuck them. Like, this is the conversation. Like, this is the reality of the world. So get on board. Like, what are you doing? And get left. You know.
What blows my mind is that like every agency says like we want to do the unexpected, but it's like the unexpected for like Axe is just like, okay, well, like let's just like represent masculinity in a real way.
What?
Like, you know, telling the truth is
Crazy.
like uncommon now.
Yeah.
It's like, how about we just like tell the truth in our ads, and then like everyone thinks it's really cool. And so it's just like, to me,
You're
it's
a
just, like,
revolutionary, man.
it just is like surprises me that every agency wants to do the unexpected. It's like the unexpected is like literally right in front of your face. Just like do what's true and do what's real.
I think what's hilarious too is that anybody thinks advertising represents anything real. Like, even for white people, like white people are watching TV going like, I don't look like that. Like I mean.
Wait, you
So I
don't
think
you
it's
don't
just,
like you
the
don't
first
cook
mistake
pies
is
in
to
a
think
ball
that-
gown?
Yeah,
What?
I think that advertising depicts anything that or represents anybody that's real, regardless of color and gender. And I think that's probably the biggest opportunity for everybody out there making ads, whether it's a brand or an agency, is people love when they can actually look at the TV and go, thank God somebody is finally showing somebody that represents who I am. And I don't think you have to be, I don't think it matters what color you are. I think everybody is craving that moment. So.
Oh, I have to pick the guy behind you because I haven't heard from him, but you're next. I promise. Hey. Oh, stand up on your feet. We want to see all of you. Yay! Thank you. That's just because we can't hear.
There seems to be a big movement of minority millennials that are creating their own path and being frustrated with tradition. So, to further understand C-suite partners and clients, those that want to operate as far as having their own income and working in the industry, what are some more candid conversations that you have that as far as hesitancy to diversify your staff?
Can you ask that one more time?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't think I understood the question.
So,
Diversifying
It
the
sounds
staff.
really like I'm excited to hear the answer, I think. I don't totally know how to answer it.
I
so
heard
you just ask one more
millennials
time.
trying to carve their own path, and you're trying to understand this, the C-suite hesitancy to right. Right. So are you saying entrepreneurial, or do you mean start their own thing like their own companies, or be a little bit more creative and independent within the context of the company they want to be hired for?
Or just have different streams of income?
Oh, conflict of interest, you mean?
Like freelance?
Yeah, freelance while working with a main company. All right, so you're finding that people have a problem with this. This is objectionable.
I think so.
Okay. Recruiters, do you have anything to say about that?
To tell you the truth, I mean, freelancers freelance. I don't, and they have many projects, but I don't know about like permanent staff. I mean, I know a lot of people have like little side hustles,
Yeah.
but I don't know in regards to, I mean, that's a good HR question, I guess.
So
It used to be, well, what I've noticed is in a trend, our creative people could freelance for anybody they wanted to as long as they didn't have, it wasn't a competitor of one of our clients.
Right.
And it was a small mom and pop that needed a plumbing company that needed a brochure. We're never going to pitch that small mom and pop plumbing company. So they supplemented their income doing that. But as I would do exit interviews with creative people who were leaving to go to other agencies, more and more often I started to hear, I'm not allowed to do that anymore. Even a nonprofit. I was trying to get this one art director, copywriter team to stick with this nonprofit. They weren't getting paid anyway, and they were
Right.
passionate about the cause. they weren't even allowed to do that at their new agency.
Yeah.
So I know that door has closed.
Interesting.
But it used to be in our employee handbook that you were
Yeah.
allowed to do that unless it was, it was a conflict for one of these. And if you weren't sure, you were supposed to check with us before you just did freelance for
So
work. But
before I was the
that's
CEO
changed.
of Diversity Company, the first iteration of the business was a marketing company. My background is in marketing. And as a business owner, now it's just a conflict of interest. If you're free, it's like you've got to pick one. You're either 1099 or you're working for the company. And if you're doing something in the middle of part-time, if the employer's paying employment tax on you, then you are a liability to that company if you are freelancing on the side. You can take my clients, you can nurture clients that you should be nurturing for me. So it's a loyalty thing, unfortunately. But I tell you, as a business owner in Richmond, I think that, don't be afraid to be independent.
Right.
There's enough to go around for all, but you got to be good at it, and you got to be creative and make strong partnerships.
It also depends on what you do. If you're a writer, you can freelance. Okay, so the classic path for writers in advertising is typically, or I say classic, but what I've seen a lot happen is people will write or art direct for a number of years through agencies and then go, you know what, I'm actually really passionate about X and I want to go do X, and then they'll go do X and then freelance on the side. So they're not really working for two people necessarily. They're kind of doing their say they want to become a director or they want to start a nonprofit or whatever, and they're kind of freelancing on the side to fund whatever that passion project is. And I think as long as you're not sort of freelancing at two agencies, working on two financial clients or something like that, you're probably fine. If you're just trying to if you want to start a pasta company and then you want to write scripts for Walmart on the side, go for it,
Yeah.
And full disclosure, just tell people what
Yeah.
you're doing
Yeah.
from the beginning before you accept the job. I can't tell you how many times people have to disappear because they don't tell the truth,
Right.
or because they do something sneaky on the side. Just tell the truth. Always leave it good, all right?
Yeah.
And start it good.
Yeah.
I think so I run a nonprofit outside of the work that I do at Profit, but
No profit and non-profit.
see the jokes, people,
So good.
amazing. This is why you're moderating. But so while it doesn't conflict with the work that I do on the day to day, it does, and this is being recorded, so I'll be careful with my words. It constrains my time, and I have to be, I prioritize work for sure, but sometimes I have to end my day at 7 p.m. because I have to go to an event or go to a meeting or what have you. But I put that all the way out there
All the way.
with the folks I work with and the whole firm, and I tell the story that it makes me better at my job.
There you go.
And they believe that story. Whether that story is super true or not, no, it is true. It does make me better at my job because I think doing more diverse things, getting more of a perspective, makes you brings more to your work. So I think the framing I think is also a good sort of way to approach doing either a side hustle or something freelance outside.
I'm actually scared to hire people who don't have something like that, like something that they're into on the side, because that shows me a level of commitment, that people are passionate about something, and the fact that they put that on the table. It's like, I don't expect anybody to be with me forever, like we, married or something. And so if you're able to stick with your thing and make your thing grow and get to the point where your side thing is your main thing, you're exactly the kind of employee I want. That's great. But yeah. Hi, I know you.
I was just gonna say, am I allowed to?
No, you have to stand up too.
Well, I was just gonna say, I cannot agree with that, what you all are talking about more about. I understand what you're talking about doing the freelance and it being a conflict of interest, but I just believe in that so much about, I think it's a form of diversity in itself, like diversifying yourself and going to, people will tease me about it, and I'll go to this networking event that is like not for me. It's not for someone in marketing and advertising. It's not, whatever, but I just show up, and I think that brings so much more to the table. If you're talking about you running a nonprofit makes you better at your job, me running Ad Club makes me better at whatever job I'm doing, because I'm meeting people that are in such different paths, and just like showing up and being to work. And I think it's like a duty that you have as an employee. That's why you're a big company and not just one person running it, because you're getting all these different people that have all these different extra unique cool things about them that they can bring in.
You mean like diversity? Like it makes you like more diverse? Shut up, Christina. You were supposed to be next, and not Christina. I'm sorry. It's because her dress matched his shirt, and I just got distracted.
This was kind of back to the thing where diversity I guess in the ad, but also within the purchase of the advertising. You know, that's the part of we do handle creative because we have, in-house, we offer that if someone doesn't have, an agency. But on that end of it, I'll get an avail, and I'll sit there and I'll pull a ranker, and of course, WTTGA 165 East, number one station, 2554, and I get, oh no, we're not buying Urban.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And they don't know, and this is all email, so they don't know. Most people think I'm a man when they see Ray. Anyway, so they're like, no, we're not buying Urban. I'm like, okay. And it's to the point, we've had a lot of large advertisers since I've been there that have come into the market, and that's been their thing. And we've had to, on our end of it, hammer it down their throats to say, you don't invite someone to the party.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how great your party is,
Amen.
how expensive your wine is. I'm not going to know that you want me to come there and shop. And when Richmond is, by advertising and media classifications, a high density black area, why aren't you buying it? And it's interesting. And some agencies outside of the state, they'll sit and say, like, oh, well, they want to see, income and everything. And they just, I'm like, what do you think? We have a pocket of homeless with black people? And all this is the radio? They don't understand, why is the urban station, how is your city set up? And so it's interesting. It's kind of changed over the years. I've kind of watched that go away. But it would be things from restaurant avails to jewelry stores to products that aren't specific to anyone.
Yeah.
And we would just get straight off the bat, I'm not buying urban. And so I guess from the agency perspective, what conversations have maybe you've been having, I've been in this, 4 or 5 years now, what conversations have you started having over the years that maybe has changed that? And what was that dynamic before as to why, when your buyer, or your planner was coming to me and the first thing out of their mouth was, no urban.
Well, that's a media question, and I'm not going to pretend to know enough about media to give you like a great answer, but I'll take a stab at it. From a national media buying perspective, a lot of times the way media bought is not an a la carte process. It's, you buy one network and it comes with 15 other networks. So it's a super complicated process, and it's seriously a science. The question I would probably ask is going back to it's a science, but it's based on historic purchasing, and it's based on and viewership and behaviors, and it's based on that because those are behaviors that we've sort of trained people to have. So it's a faulty science, in my opinion, because of that. But I will say that for the most part, the media that is purchased has a lot to do with how the product, who the planning team has decided is the target market. And so they're telling you they don't want urban probably because they've decided that their target demographic is probably white people that make a certain income.
That black people money is just, it's not green enough.
Neither is gay people
And gay people money also not welcome
but,
here.
they're probably saying we want people that listen to the radio from 7 to 10 and make, $75,000, and, they probably didn't say they're white, but they probably didn't say they are specifically black either. You know what I'm saying? So for that media buyer, they're like, well, they didn't say that we were marketing to white people, and they didn't say we were marketing to black people. So if I do the urban station, then I'm specifically marketing to black people. Am I spending my money specifically in a place where I'm going to burn the rest of the demographic that I'm responsible for targeting? You know what I'm saying? So again, it's one of those situations where it's a faulty science, and it's just not as simple as we're just not going to market to urban people.
Ray,
even though somebody said that to you.
Sometime we got to get together and talk about what it's like to be a man in advertising, because I was the white lady in advertising on the phone, And then they walk past me when I'm trying to go meet people. I'm like, I'm right here. Tiffany's right here. All right, you have the honor of the very last question because we are almost at time.
I'm in media and I'm really, really new to it, so I'm not an expert. But what I've seen is definitely just like the target audience, the mindsets, like they want that. And like I could tell today I was looking at malls and seeing Antonio, Texas, and like the target audience is people with like $100,000 income and like Neiman Marcus and like Saks for like the
The
stores.
anchors.
Like, that's what they're targeting. So it's all based on who that client wants to sell to. Like if that client doesn't want to sell to the media, doesn't really have a choice. You know what I mean? Like they can talk to the client, kind of working through it, but the client's like dead set on it. There's nothing like even like buyers or planners to go.
And sometimes they just get the target wrong. You know what I mean? And that, I think that's what the bigger conversation is about is why are we targeting those people? And is there a bigger opportunity to do a bigger spectrum of targeting? Can we talk to more people? Can we talk to everybody? I mean,
And I've gotten frustrated with a little bit of a blame game. Blame it on the client. The client said, we used to get a list of specifically shows. We don't want to run on King of the Hill. We don't want to run on this show, anything that was controversial. This client did not want any spots bought for that time. So it wasn't just the markets and the urban and the not urban. It was specifically, I don't want to offend what I believe would offend my. But there was a lot of blame game within the agency of creatives blaming the account. If you could just convince them to try this, or media people saying, well, this is what the client said and this is what I'm going to follow, instead of trying to convince them or show them. So, and it's a cop-out, but there's some truth to it. It's business at the end of the day. But when the client is adamant, you still want your ad agency to try to convince the client why this other is smarter. To me, that's at the end of the day what the advertising leadership can do, is to try, because there are some really narrow-minded clients out there, and creative would say, why can't we find better clients that appreciate good creative? If you could just convince them that this is the better concept. If we presented two concepts, invariably they're going to pick the stupid one that we didn't really want. Why did we present that one? But there's that blame game going on within the agency, but then it's always a good, easy cop-out to blame the client. Well, the client said they wanted to do this. Seen it over and over again in multiple agencies. And that's sort of human nature, to blame somebody else. But at the end of the day, I feel like the agencies have to take some ownership of trying to convince the client, whether that's the creative director, the copywriter, the account supervisor, or the leadership at the agency, to try to convince the client that they're wrong.
I think it's, just speaking from the creative side, I think it's really incumbent on us to make sure we're asking the right questions. Because most of the time, for branding stuff, and I don't know the marketing side as well, but I've kind of worked on some marketing projects, and they'll come to us and say, this is our problem, or this is the target audience that we want to do, or we want to do a social media campaign. I think it's incumbent on us to say, is that what you need to do? Is that going to be the right solution? Are you talking to the right people? And then I think, budget and stuff like this is an issue, and I think it gets handled a lot on the brand and strategy side. But doing the research to prove their assumptions is, something I've seen a lot reveal, actually, no, half of your audience is Hispanic, so get on board, or whatever it is. I think I try to, and to your question earlier around, how do you keep your energy up? It does tax your energy to constantly be like, is it though? Are you? Really? All the time. And sometimes, the leadership is like, maybe it's time for you to sit down and stop asking questions. But I think coming into the room with an orientation of challenge, smart challenge, don't just come in yelling some shit, but be educated about the question you're asking, and then ask the question and say, is it really? And I think it's actually incumbent on whether they're creative directors or writers, below that, or whoever you are, wherever you are in the hierarchy. I think we can all ask questions. Be smart, but ask questions.
I think it's also important to note that, what people want is rarely what they need. It's people don't know they like something until they see it. So as a creative, it's all right, let me deliver on your ask, but let me also give you more than what you asked for. Because if that's if that's the star, if that's the center, it's here's what you asked for, but this is better, and they're gonna want what's better.
Right.
And we have to learn as creatives like how to sell our work. It's like we can't like ask like someone else who didn't work on our project to sell our work for us. That's silly. Like learn how to sell your work, and then like you can't blame someone else because like it's your responsibility to sell your work, and it's your responsibility to like make sure good stuff is being made.
So it is now 8:30. I believe in being on time. I was raised in Germany. So I would like to thank the panel. Clap your hands together. You may now go forth and diversify. Yes, diversify. But you can come and ask questions if you still have something you want to say. I saw your hand come on up here.